Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In Chapter 5 of Book 4 of his Discourses, Epictetus is going to talk about people who are contentious and thereby become what we're going to translate as brutal. So let's talk about these terms very quickly. The contentious is the machimoi, those people who always want to scrap with other people, who are, itching for a fight, as we say. They're also, going to be people who are in certain ways self-contradictory. This machimoi is coming from the same term that we've been translating as conflict or contradiction when we talk about our ideas or our way of life. Now, the brutal, another way of translating that would be bestial, but we might translate that even better as animal-like. When a person is behaving like an animal, they are theriodes. Ther is a beast, an animal, a wild thing, right? And the question that we want to ask then is, how do these people end up that way? Before we do that, let's look a little bit at sort of his descriptions of this. He talks about people holding grudges, neighbors throwing rocks at their pottery, people being liable to go up and punch other people in the head. This is pretty descriptive, right? This is the kind of common thing that we see quite often. People become angry, they become, as he calls it, querulous. That means they're complaining about other people. It is the whole gamut of really being a jerk to other people and thinking that it's the right thing for you to do. So that gets us back to this question. Why do they behave that way? So Epictetus tells us that this is the nature of every being, to pursue the good and flee from the evil. Okay, so that is part of not just human nature, but also animal nature. The problem is that these people are mistaken about what genuinely is good and evil. And so they're going to get themselves into conflicts with other people because they think, for example, that honor is a good thing, or the lack of honor is a bad thing. They think that whatever it is that they desire, they really ought to have. And then, other people are going to get in the way. So Epictetus tells us that they consider the man who robs one of the good and invests them with the other, the evil, as an enemy and as an aggressor, even if they have some sort of relationship with him. Even though he be a brother, even though he be a son, even though he be a father, for nothing is closer kin to us, he says, than our own good. This is the way that human beings are. So it's very important that we get our ideas right about what is, in fact, genuinely good and evil for ourselves. So if we don't do that, he says that we become like animals. And he talks about three different kinds here, two of which he talks about in other places, quite frequently the sheep and the beasts of prey. He says, here's a man whose sense of self-respect has grown numb. He is useless. A sheep, anything but a human being. Here's a man who does not listen to reason. He does not understand when he is confuted. He's an ass, a donkey, a beast of burden. Here's a man who's looking for someone he can kick or bite when he meets him. So he's not even a sheep or an ass, but rather some wild beast. And Epictetus in other places talks about, when we give in to our animal instincts for anger, we become like wild beasts. We become like beasts of prey. When we give in to our desire for pleasure, for taking it easy, we become like sheep. I suppose you could say when we sort of harden ourselves and won't listen to other people, we become like asses. And when we do that, we set ourselves up for all sorts of trouble, and we make trouble for everybody else around us. So how do we not end up like that? He says, well, one thing we want to do is realize that our good and our evil lies in our faculty of choice. Now, if we do that, we are not going to retaliate against the people who behave this way, because we'll be able to see that the reason why they're acting like that isn't because they're our enemies or because they, really in their heart of heart hate us. It's because they're mistaken about what's really good and what's evil, and they're not paying attention to the things that they ought to be, like, what their relationships are, or how this is damaging to themselves and to others. So, he goes on and he says, if we do this, we will be gentle, we will be patient, we'll be generous, we'll be affectionate with other people. We won't retaliate, and here's the real test, or even want to retaliate against the contentious when they do that. Why? Because we see things in the proper way. So, he's got some examples here. He says, where then is there any room for contention when a man is in such a state? He is not filled with wonder at anything that happens, is he? Does anything seem strange to him? Does he not expect worse and harsher treatment from the wicked than actually befalls him? If we understand the way human beings are when they're screwed up, we're not going to be surprised when they treat us badly. And probably we won't make ourselves as vulnerable to them as well. But when they do act badly, we can say, well, it's not as bad as it could be, right? I'm great, he says, from where or what teacher did we learn that man is a tame animal, that he manifests mutual affection, that injustice in itself is a great injury to the unjust man? That's what these people are not learning. That's what they don't know. That's what we do know, and so we're called to behave in a better way, and that's the right way for us to behave, right in the sense that it's good for us to do that. He goes on and he says, my neighbor has thrown stones. You've not made a mistake when your neighbor's thrown stones, have you? No, but my crockery is broken. Are you a piece of crockery then? Or are you your faculty of choice? Which is it? You have to make a decision. Are you going to be like these people and identify your good with something external to yourselves? Then you're going to get upset. Then you're going to be just like them. You're going to retaliate. Or are you going to see it as lying in the one thing that you truly have control over? He has a couple other examples. He says, what then? Do you want me to be despised? And then he says, well, who are you worrying about being despised by? By men of understanding? How are men of understanding going to despise the gentle and the self-respecting person? No, but by men without understanding. Well, who cares what they think? What difference is that to you? Neither you nor any other craftsman cares about those who are not skilled in their art. The art is the art of living. We shouldn't, he's saying, care about what these people think. Their thinking is deranged. That's why they are like wild beasts. Instead, we should care about what other people who have their heads screwed on right and who are, in fact, focusing on the good being in their faculty of choice and on improving themselves. We should be concerned about what they think and about forming some sort of fellowship with them. So Epictetus doesn't think that we can in any way sort of cure the brutal and the contentious unless they recognize, at least the glimmerings of their position not being right and decide to go for some help. We can't compel another person's moral purpose. What we can do is prepare for the fact that we are going to run into people like this and not allow ourselves, especially if we have an inclination towards that, to fall into the same trap that they are unfortunately stuck within.